I mean, it's well, for one, it's you could argue that it's a game, like that's the most accurate sort of term for sort of high level container for it, which in and of itself people love to argue about that sort of thing. Like, I've always thought of it as being a collection of games, experiments, and sandboxes
Hmm.
that share themes, systems, content, etc. And there's a certain sort of person that is, when they put on VR HMD, what they're looking for is a capital G game that signals everything from the splash screen to the main menu to the way it operates. They expect a certain smell of gameness to their whole experience that I sort of rejected right from the beginning, because my background prior to H3 is not games industry. It's as an experimental electronic artist. It's as someone who's been doing VR stuff since 2004.
Mm.
And so it's if H3 has a weird feeling when you load in, that it doesn't quite feel like another game, that's quite intentional. And so I think there's a certain sort of person that is expecting to load in, get their capital G game, and immediately be told what to do, that rubs the wrong way.
Yeah, it's pretty apparent to some. I think you have a very unique user base. For better or for worse, they're very, very vocal, which has its pauses, but I have much more negatives, I would assume. They're super vocal, but it's kind of like they're bought in. They feel like, I see some people like arguing with you on Steam about adding a new feature. They have 300 plus hours in the game. It's a very unique like relationship you have with your users because they are bought in, but at the same time, they're so bought in that I feel like they almost think it's their game at times, and it's interesting. I don't know if
Yep,
you get that vibe.
yeah, and I mean anytime we're talking about a community for a game, there's people who play it, and then of the people who play it, there's a tiny percentage of them that are going to interact with you on any platform ever.
Yes.
One of the number one mistakes that people who make video games make right off the bat is that they think that the percentage of people that interface with them through Steam, through YouTube, etc., is actually the representative sample of all players, instead of a subset in terms of age, engagement, free time, etc., that is biased in many directions. And then of that group, there's then maybe once again, a couple percent that are super engaged and super passionate, usually super opinionated
Hmm.
as a result. And there's a lot of affect management that goes on to dealing with that. But, I would say, you'd made a comment, said that that it was more on the downside. And at this point, most certainly not. I
Yeah.
mean, things like that take a lot of curation. There have definitely been periods of the game's development where things were more drama oriented at times. But especially nowadays, like the folks who are still with the project, by and large, a few of them can be a little annoying or a little abrasive in the way that they express their desires. But by and large, it's pretty wonderful.
Yeah. Let's talk about that though. On these, like, when you bring up people can be, critical or give a critique, it's it's an interesting comment when you say it that way because I've noticed a trend. It's like depending on the outlet. Like if you have a YouTuber, the critique is like good or bad. That's it. There's no nuance. Is it good? Is it bad? And it's going to be in 10 minutes, and there's going to be nothing else to it. If it's a journalist doing it, and I'll let you can speak on what you see, but I see journalists, they're going to go more highbrow. They're going concept, think pieces for their articles. But I'm not like, I see movie reviews and 20-minute television or 20-minute anime episode reviews that are like a One Piece episode, which is blatantly mostly filler in a lot of these episodes, and they get more of a thorough examination of that 20 minutes than like a VR review would be. What's your take on that? Like, why is this whole dichotomy of like reviewing games not more in depth and critical?
Um, I think there's a number of things. I mean, first off, when it comes to just written media, no one reads.
No.
You know what I mean? The like people engage with written media, as far as I see it, in term from sort of two perspectives, which is either confirmation of something they already feel about something, because they want that, like, oh yeah, other people are liking this, I feel good because I
Hmm.
liked that thing, or they know nothing about a thing and want a quick, I want in 8 to 12 seconds, I want to know whether I should go find a video about this thing and maybe check out if it's something I want to buy, or check out if it's something I want to get into? Or do I not bother because we all have endless feeds of an infinite amount of media at all times? And the greatest challenge at any given moment is about efficient parsing, and about being able to early out and discard things that we're not interested in as quickly as possible. And so I think that's something that has undermined the notion of what a game review is supposed to be and how it's supposed to function in the first place. Because obviously there's certain sets of writers and creators that want to do more in-depth, long-form content, and doesn't appear to be what the general audience is looking for. The general audience wants to oh, that's an 82, boom, and they just want to move on right from there. And usually it's people who are already bought into something that they're like, I want to know more about what that thing that I loved was actually like. I just played Death Stranding. I didn't understand 2/3 of it, but it hit me importantly. I'm going to go watch this 1.5 hour long video about it so that I can understand what I just consumed.
Did H3 start? I don't know the answer to this. Did it start, since I know Steam VR? Was it early access to start, or did it release out? Yeah, I'm assuming early access.
Yeah, and H3 launched as a barely anything in a way, because what happened is, relative to the other early developers who had a Vive Pre dev kit, or even the sort of cobbled together dev kit that preceded it, I got access to one fairly late. And which meant that, and I had basically not really set out to make a game, but just to make some experiments and triangulate where the tech had come since the last time I had played with hand-tracked VR, basically a decade earlier. And it was through videos of those experiments going viral that we made the decision as a group to try to, and basically people banging down my door, like, I get a Vive on April 5th. Can I just buy the scene you have? That we decided to death march out a barely early access thing. I wouldn't even call it a game at the time. It was just a thing. It was some experiments.
How'd you get past the? Now I think people's expectations. What year was this? 17?
2015.
16? 15, even earlier. So I'm assuming people were much more patient there. But did you find any pushback, like you said, where people want the quick? Is this good, bad? Just the early access moniker for a VR title at the beginning caused some frustrations, or was it early enough at that point people were a little more calm and chill and waiting?
I mean, that moment was so dense with enthusiasts,
Yes.
Who were just hungry for any sort of content, and the audience in general slanted older by almost a 20-year average. I would say the average age of the VR user now is probably, of the new people coming in, is probably 16 to 17 sort of thing. Back then it was probably 35, possibly even older, for that first gen. And so people were way more patient, but at the same time there were still some people being like, this is not a game, this is barely in anything. And we were just tried to be as super open about it as possible and be like, look, we're going to start updating this every week, every Friday, with a video. You can follow along. Don't feel pressured to buy it now. Just follow along. And if at any point it becomes something you might be interested in, buy it at that point. It was the less than zero pressure approach to selling it that we took.
Hit that subscribe button to stay on top of the daily clips, or catch the debates and fireside chats live on the main channel down in the video description. See you next time, Space Cowboys.